will return back to this song soon because it's a song by a very, very popular singer, one of the most iconic singers from Goa ever, a gentleman that goes by the name Manuel Aguiar. He was popularly called M. Boyer. A very funny citation for the names because these are names coming from a very small Portuguese colony colonialized for more than 450 years, and the name being Goa, which of course rings many bells in the heads of many lovely citizens of this world because everybody has a very different connection to this word and how they think of it and what they think of it and what it really is and what it really isn't. So this show's been going on now for a couple of episodes, and we've been trying to establish a couple of things, and just a couple of things happened in recent times. And if one were to be listening to the show sometime in, let's say, 2040 or something of that sort, this show would be a documentation of the times of what is going on right now. And like as we know, life is a process of different types. And having made that verbal typo, we would go on to understand what is right now currently taking place in our world with regards to a place called Goa, from Goa with Love. As we understand, institutionalized crime. Okay, now this has been written by many academists, and it is an understanding also of constitution of certain countries. You know, on a very interesting detour, did you know why the American Constitution allows the use of weapons? Yes, incidentally, it does cite that there is a possibility for one to defend himself or herself and their families should the state government get into measures which are not very nice. So you see, there's a very clear cut understanding by the constitution of this huge country itself that there will be situations where the state government can go wrong. Not only can go wrong, can do horribly aggressive things against the population. And this has been written now in the Constitution of the United States of America. I am not responsible for this because this is not my opinion. Now, what this means is that there is something called institutionalized crime, which was described by the academicians and the sociologists from the universities, the learned people, as we understand it, some people who can even classify as experts, which basically don't exist on this planet. But yes, so coming back to the point of understanding, institutionalized crime is where the state itself knowingly or unknowingly indulges in things or acts that are against the citizenry. In the context of the world and the citizens of the world, you see, the world is populated by many citizens and has climate and has rainfall in certain places, tropical in the other places, snow in some places. And this is all governed by certain types of huge amounts of vegetation and flora and fauna, which enable this entire ecosystem of our planet to function. So that means there are many green spaces. Green spaces are spaces which are like biodiversity hotspots of the world, which are 8 in all over this planet. This has been endorsed by the UNESCO and several other bodies all over the world. One of the most popular, however, being UNESCO. The point being that these places are the reasons for our planet's ecosystem. And I wanted to just go ahead and name these things because more than the 7 wonders of the world should be these 8 biodiversity hotspots of this planet. And the first one that I'm going to read out is a place called the Himalayas in India, also shared with Nepal and Bhutan. Okay, so there's this Himalayan mountain range. The second that I'm just reading out, it's just in random order, of course. But these are 8 in all, and none is better than one. But one has been declared as the Himalayas. shared by India, Nepal, and Bhutan. The second one that I'm reading out is the Western Ghats, which is shared by Goa and some neighboring states in India. Now, there is a slight asterisk mark here before I go to the third one, because there have been protests about the state government building a coal transportation railway line through this particular Western Ghats in India, which is a hotspot which is a biodiversity hotspot on this whole planet, which means it's very important to this planet. Like the next one, which I'm reading out, which is the Indo-Burma, India, Myanmar, Thailand space. Then there is the Sunda land, which is in Indonesia and Malaysia. And then there is Madagascar. And next comes Mesoamerica, which means Mexico, Costa Rica, and Panama. Then comes the Amazon rainforest, which we all know is a very, very important biodiversity hotspot. Now we understand what exactly is a biodiversity hotspot, because we know the most popular ones amongst these 8 that I'm mentioning right now is the Amazon rainforest. So the Amazon rainforest includes Brazil, Peru, and Colombia, the regions that are shared by these 3 places. And the last one, which is the 8th one, not the last, but just the 8th one, which I'm reading out on this list, is Cape Floristic region, which is in South Africa. So these are the 8 biodiversity hotspots of the world, which I'm repeating again and again. The reason I'm doing this is because it is a place from where the climate and our ecosystem is actually affected. So if you destroy any of these, you will have effects overall. And there have been cases of destruction with relations to these as well, and specifically speaking in Goa. This has also been explained in the introduction of the show, where you introduce the show somewhere on the radio channel website. And it talks about the fact that this is how Goa is linked to the whole world. So yes, this is exactly how it is linked, and that is why there has been a new movement which has just taken shape, and this might be a very interesting one, because this has been called, as in the person calling to action here, this is obviously a person involved, and this person happens to be part of the judiciary himself. He's an ex-judge. And the person in concern is already on his understanding that the state administration has made a few boo-boos with regards to these sort of environmental clearances. Now, let's make a very important thing clear here. The Supreme Court of India has already made it sufficiently clear that if ever there has been a question, or will be a question, or is a question between development and the environment, and protecting the environment instead of developing, or developing instead of protecting the environment, then the prize will always go to the environment. And that means that in every case that these 2 situations come up and we have a choice to make, the choice will always be the environment. This has been claimed and supported and endorsed by the highest form of judiciary of this biggest democracy of the world by way of its population, 1.6 billion of us, the Supreme Court of India. Okay, so the Supreme Court of India has said this, and this is a thing that we all go by. Now the state government in Goa has actually made attempts and gone beyond certain limits in damaging such resources which are environmentally extremely, extremely important. This has not only been recorded by the press and then the activists and then many more people from the villages who kept on coming out on the streets and stopping any sort of development in their forest areas. This is a sign of the times that this show is talking about, because right now there is an ex-judge who says we will be making a citizens charter And this basically means that we have all accepted that the state has indulged in institutionalized crime and basically hooked it up. Okay, if you don't have to say the word really, hooked it up. So this is what has happened by the powers that be currently, or before, or whenever, but has happened by the powers that be, and hence we need to get this back in order. Because if we don't do this, then there will be great danger to not only these very lovely hotspot biodiversity areas in Goa. I mean, if these very important areas to the whole international community and the whole international world are not respected by the state government, then there is definitely a case that the state government is indulging in institutionalized crime and going ahead and giving certain licenses and permissions to things that should not be developed in places that don't require to have development made at all, such as the points made out by this particular movement right now. They have made 10 points. I will read out the 10 points, and then we can have an own understanding of exactly what this is all about. So the story is that the state government right now is indulging in institutionalized crime, and they have been basically making some amendments in the law, in particular in a particular town and country planning law, which probably exists all over the world with every department in every city and state and village, etc. But there is one overall department in the state of where I'm talking about, from where this show comes from, Goa with love. This particular department is called the Town and Country Department, in which they have made certain amendments which go by the names like a 17A, 39B, and things like this. Now, what they are talking about here is these things have been made by the executive powers of governance. The state has actually made these amendments to the law, by which there are many places which are being destroyed environmentally, number one. What instead is happening there is construction and development, and this is changing the demography of the place. And when this changes the demography of the place, it changes the topography of the place, then there are huge situations for the residents of that area, for whom now they have to accommodate with a lot more than what they were accommodating earlier. So the Goa of what they understand is changing because of all of these factors. And it's all right for anyone to go and live anywhere in the world. There is no problem with this. But when we understand that even the hill next door is suddenly being cut away, and a building is being constructed there for settlers who are coming, or Goan families or whoever, then the situation brings us to understand that we are not respecting the space that we have. So the people's movement right now is just to respect again the space what we have, and this is now in letter and spirit. The why I say this is because this is a movement which has been picked up by a member of the judiciary, and he has already declared the state government has crossed these lines and made the blunders, and now we need an accountability even from the state government and the powers that be and all the bureaucrats who have taken bribes and corruption and basically given licenses and permissions to create construction and cut the hills of a very lovely place called Goa. So the sympathy obviously goes to the understanding that we are randomly destroying a lot of natural resources which we will and our children will really cry about. Being the biggest population on this planet, this is exactly what we should not be doing. And it's a very clear situation for everyone to try and help support this movement. Because what's happening in Goa is there are a few movements that have been undertaken by certain few agencies. And these agencies have been committed to the cause. They have been committed to the cause like environmental damage. They have been committed to the cause of treating animals ethically. They have been committed to the cause of trying and having a very ethical media. And these are just few citizens working from different parts of the world or certain places from Goa themselves who are trying to keep a good situation in their homeland. Because what's happening otherwise is there's a rampant amount of things being pulled down, which are natural resources. Now you see in a place like, for example, Europe, there are certain areas which are left as no development because these are forest areas. They are meant for an ecosystem to grow and develop for the animals. Now, you see, there must be a very interesting story for everybody right now with regards to a leopard being caught in a village. And the expression of how my friend explains to me how when a dog is around your house. Now there are many houses in the outskirts of villages and many of them have dogs because these dogs are the barking signal for anyone that comes from a mile away. And imagine this person, this particular creature who's supposed to be so attentive and barking at anything that comes from anywhere further away. In the middle of the night, in these days, this is what has happened. And all you can hear is ah, and that is the last sound you can hear of this particular animal called the dog that has been eaten away and taken away by a black cat, because the black cat and the leopard and these other animals who are living in the forests are now getting their habitats encroached upon. And that is a huge disadvantage not only to them but also to us and the dogs around and the animals around, because that means they're going to enter the villages. Now, see, what is happening here is a very important way of understanding the situation. If anyone goes into somebody else's house and begins living there just out of nothing, then there has to be some regulation around it. Now, if we are going to be suddenly going from our comfort homes from wherever we are living into a jungle and forest area because we think the city we've had enough with, then we must also understand that there are other living animals and creatures also there. Yeah? Now, this is something which can only come by one particular situation, which is a Facebook page actually called Plan C. Okay, no prizes for guessing what the meaning of C is. This show is by C Goa. There is music going on by C Goa. There is a lot of radio podcasts going on by C Goa. But what is C Goa? It's consciousness. So just to get the score right, what we're talking about as far as Plan C is concerned is plan consciousness. Now, when we get into plan consciousness, then we suddenly understand that there are creatures around us also, just like us, and they may probably also feel pain because they are alive and living around us, including the plants. Now, for all of the people who have got into the movement of vegetarianism, this is a very important understanding that if you're into a movement of vegetarianism, but you will blindly accept the cutting of trees and vegetation and killing of animals to build more of an already growing population, then the idea to change things happens to get more fundamental rather than these detailed symptomatic solutions. Because to do one solution, you will have another problem, and then you will make that solution and you will get another problem. So you will have to go to a fundamental mindset creation. Now, what is the creation of a mindset? The creation of a mindset is the creation of a space of the citizens. Now, this is why I'm talking about this particular show, and it's called From Goa with Love. Because although more than 70% of India is being run by coal, there is this one small tiny place called Goa wherein the people have not only understood the disadvantages of coal, but they've also understood the slow bureaucratic processes that they would have to deal with, and in the meanwhile have a lot more lives endangered and lost, not only human but also of the animal species, that they would need to already start a movement against coal. And then came this government institutionalized crime wherein they started encroaching upon biodiversity hotspots, which not only belong to Goa but belong to the whole planet. Now, one question is, what is UNESCO doing about this thing? That is a very interesting question, and I'm in correspondence with this particular body, so we will be getting some answers for sure. Going ahead in the story, what has happened is this entire movement right now, as we speak, is geared up to protecting all of these spaces in Goa that don't have a voice. For example, the animal species, for example, the plant species, for example, the paddy fields, The Khazan lands. Now we must understand what are Khazan lands. Khazan lands are a particular type of landscape lands in particular regions of India, and our entire region of Goa has a lot of Khazan lands. It would be nice to understand and research about this thing if you're really interested, but I would go on to the story aspect and leave research for a much serious moment. Because there is enough research which has gone into the show already to just bring you these facts that the 10 points that have been made by this um, new movement taking place. You see, the first thing that they're talking about is development is only going to be done as per a regional plan or an outlined development plan, like an ODP, they call it, or whatever. So, the point here is if you are going to be doing any sort of development, there already have to be plans for every village and every square meter of Goa in place where we understand, okay, this is forest land. These are non-development zones because they are hills. Now the law is made to protect hills, forests and seashores, the sea line. The sea line is protected by the coastal regulation zone laws, which are laws from all over the world. Now, you see, there was an article written by myself, as in yours truly, with regards to this particular type of law from beaches and places like Spain, Portugal, and the European side, where there are many beaches. And pictures of these, if you actually look at, you will see that there is a lot of development that has taken place and broken many laws. Now there has been not only no accountability, there has been nothing done about certain places, and they have basically had huge resorts being built on the seashore line where public is supposed to be getting access to natural resources like the sea and the shore. So as we understand it, this is something that we should avoid in a place which is not yet developed like India, like Goa, where there is a conscious population that understands that in this coastal development, in the coastal regulation zone at the sea line, beyond a particular limit, you cannot have any more construction. And this is for the sake of natural reasons so that natural disasters don't take place. Now, in other areas where there are hills and there are low lying paddy fields, if these are covered with buildings and construction, then first of all, politically, this is a huge conspiracy going on from years wherein there are many settlers coming in and that changes the vote bank and that basically gives power to more powers that be that probably indulge in more institutionalized crime. Now, what we have got very clear here is Goa state government has gone beyond and indulged and created crime, institutionalized clear-cut crime, wherein they have bypassed the guidelines of the judiciary. Okay. And by bypassing the guidelines of the judiciary, they have created a violation, they have created a breach, and hence this is not being accounted for. Now, why is this not being accounted for? Because this is continuing to happen, and to save one thing, you have to go and do a protest and do a lot of things to save it. And in the meanwhile, something else is going down as well. So you will have to target the law that has been made in such a way that you can change it, that people are buying more and more of Goa. And the state government is indulging in the sale wholesale. So if this has to be arrested, and the powers that be, that are the executive body itself, the ministers themselves are indulging in such institutionalized crime in spite of knowing it, being opposition or the ruling party, whoever, then it has to be safeguarded by the honorable judiciary at least, because the judiciary is being taken for granted. And here is a gentleman who's an ex-judge, and he has said, okay, now you have already done these things, so we already have proof that you have created crime and institutionalized crime, and hence we have to set it back to the original law of the land. So all of what has happened will need to be demolished, and all of the people involved will have to be prosecuted. Okay. Now, this is a judge saying this, so it has to be taken very seriously, and I really hope that the powers that be can actually do this by themselves. Because here's what's happened. This gentleman, along with a lot of people, has created a committee. And this committee is of some very nice people, if I may say so, because I know these people from personal capacity as well. And they have been extremely committed with regards to protection of the environment and legal affairs, and the town and country planning department making their fraud, and these people finding out exactly what is the law, where this amendment has been made, and why the hills are being allowed to get cut and the land, the paddy fields are allowed to be getting destroyed and constructions instead. So these people have made a group of individuals come together into a committee, and this is now not only going to be monitored and documented. So if there is something else which comes up right now, that can just be brought to the notice of this committee, and that just adds to the list of already created institutionalized crime. How this works is the honorable judge, ex-judge, has written to the prime minister and told him of these 10 points that the government has crossed and made the boo-boos. These are the problems that you have created, and now these have to be set back in order. And then he has written to the president of the country to make sure that the prime minister of the country takes cognizance of this particular laws which have been broken and sets them immediately back in order. Now, this is an invocation of the system, and this is exactly something which is a very good example for us, because many people may have got a lot of burnout with regards to these social activism battles. So there was a couple of conversations that we had with people who were social activists in Goa, and not only Goa but other parts of the world like Sudan, like Nigeria, and all of these people had the same thing to say, that things are not moving. So that gives them a little amount of this creation of anxiety, that why are they not taking place? They should by now. And that creates this sort of space for a little amount of frustration. Now, this is where it all starts, and that is why we've been having workshops with many activists to understand one simple thing. You see, when you start off with a motive which is very committed, like for example, saving a particular tree, you need to save this tree because this is the oldest tree on the planet. It has to be saved. Fair enough. You're saving this tree, and now whilst you do this thing, there are many things going on, and branch by branch this tree is being cut as you're still trying to save it. So it looks like you're fighting a losing battle. However, this type of a movement which is going on right now makes us understand that even if you think you're fighting a losing battle, the battle has actually already been lost by the person who's committed the crime. And this is already very clear that the institution of the state government itself indulges in these affairs. This is why the constitution of powerful countries like the United States of America actually have mentioned in their own constitution that the citizenry themselves can use weapons against the state government if that needs to be. If the state governments turn tyrant, is the word, I'm still not getting it right, against the people, and start doing things like institutionalized crime and actually creating a lot of situations for the people can very well defend themselves. So please be very careful while you blame a lot of countries and Americans for having weapons in their houses, etc., because you might most probably understand that you are absolutely not aware of the fact that this is even mentioned in their constitution, and it's actually quite a fair game. The fact that people have a lot of situation with weapons can also be seen in the amount of taxes that are paid by our own pockets and how much gets into defenses. If this is not being governed from what work we put into the society itself, then having a word about how weapons are being used is something that we should just stay away from, because we're quite far away from it. What we're actually doing is there are many situations where companies that are investing in weapons and weapon production and things like this are actually many investments that we have ourselves put our money into. And now, because of this economic benefit, it is a little difficult for us to pull back. Well, think again, because this economic benefit will not last long. It just lasts a couple of years and then you go 6 feet under. Getting back to the story of this 10-point charter. So the first one was that development will only be done as per the regional plan. The second one was repeal all corruption laws permitted, which are basically creating a lot of havoc. And this is what I was talking about with laws and amendments in this Town and Country Planning Act. The very strong third point is that stop cutting hills. These are people's heritage. So, as we understand that there is a biodiversity hotspot in the whole world, which is a World Heritage Site, these are people's heritage sites from the locals of that place. It does not only mean that just particular one UNESCO endorsed biodiversity hotspot gets covered and the rest of it gets ignored. It's definitely not so, because this is not only international citizenry involved, but this is also the local citizenry involved. Now, here is a very interesting understanding that the concept of Goa, as understood by many people from different other parts of the globe, is not the same that the residents of Goa themselves feel. And the other parts of the globe have a perspective like such. They feel that it's a type of party and they feel that it's a type of music. So when they understand that there is a biodiversity hotspot also there, then that becomes part of their understanding as world citizenry. Now, world citizenry also means that in Goa, when there was this the perception of Goa as Goa party and Goa music, which basically points out to why they are saying this. The why they are saying this is because there was a genre called the psytrance, which was originally played and popularized by Goa, because it got first played many times and popularized extremely all over the world by this place called Goa, which I am talking about. So there was this movement of music which set Goa on the map of the world, and then suddenly there was Goa tourism, which was started by the state government to tap into the resources of the natural resources which were there, and to tap into this particular movement of music tourism that had started, and people had put Goa on the map from all over the world. However, in the recent times, while these parties put Goa in the forefront, all that happened from the last 40 years of media reportage from these particular parties were the fact that these were drug parties. Now, the interesting fact here is that, in fact, this amongst all styles of parties, if one would just like get into academics and research all different styles of parties from all over the world, this was one style of party which was encouraging you to stay away from the use of drugs. This was, in fact, the only style of party which was actually encouraging you to stay away from the use of drugs, because we had already understood at a certain point, that certain drugs were basically going to get you quite hucked up. Okay, if you peeped up, peeped up. And hence, we had already understood like heroin and brown sugar and things like this were a no-go. And we were not going to be doing these anymore. We were going to, in fact, indulge in dancing. And like I was saying in a show previously, there's devil in the details. So there are drugs which suddenly went out of getting done with regards to a Goa party. And if there would be anything done or indulged in, or people would like to come to a party to indulge in something, they would come to try and smoke marijuana and dance under the stars, mostly. And if they would ever indulge in some substances, then those would only be psychotropics, because psychotropics are not drugs. Which puts them in an extremely different category of non-addictivity and non-dependability and no overdose possibility. And if you're a person who likes to drink a lot of alcohol and basically destroy yourself over, you have these type of people as well who like to drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. And if you do something like this with the drug, with a substance like a psychotropic, which is like a psychotropic substance, if you try and do the same type of thing with this and you start taking a lot of it, there will not be the same effect that you feel like doing more of it. After you do it once or twice or thrice, you're going to be like, okay, I'm very sorry, I will not do this again. It's that sort of a substance that, even the worst type of behaviors with regards to consumption basically lose to things like psychotropic. It's like, okay, we understand what this is all about. You can't just keep on doing it like a competition. There's no competition of who drinks the maximum amount of beer like they have sometimes in these Oktoberfest spaces, where drinking is sometimes having this competitive edge. Although fun as it may be, it's also understood that it's quite a toxic space, and it will be best to stay away from such a space. So hence the understanding of what Goa is to the whole different part of the world is something that was a creation of a gathering, a space which was created of freedom, and the focus was dancing, and the focus was not to do any more drugs, because these drugs were already done at the parties that they were going for themselves. They were going for techno parties, parties and clubs, and they were doing drugs like speed and cocaine and MDMA. They could sit at home and do the same thing and listen to loud music as well. But when they were coming in the nature, it was not a very nice way of enjoying any chemical substance, if you do understand what I'm talking about, because many don't. Because of the amount of badgering that has happened from the last 40 years of these newspapers in Goa and the media, which never really delved into what exactly was going on. They spoke about what substances were being offered and distributed there, but the idea of Goa sort of never really got out because of a conservative mindset towards drugs and a no tolerance attitude towards drugs from the establishment and the state, which is now indulging in institutionalized crime against the Supreme Court's directives of the state and damaging environment which belongs to the whole world, the same government. So as we understand it, there are many things that have been notified by governments all over the world, and here in this case in Goa, which have changed laws to suit certain few lobbies. So the other points that have been made in this charter are to fund resources for carrying capacity surveys before any development takes place. Now, you see, this is a very important aspect, because during the time that a project all over India was passed. Now, this is a very interesting story. We must understand the story, and we have to visit the story. So, this was an environmental minister who had one of his first ever online meetings, and as soon as it happened, was very interested in, totally kicked about it, and he tweeted saying, hey, I had my first online meeting ever. And it was so nice and productive. In a couple of hours, maybe 1 or 2 hours, I've actually passed about 36 projects all over the country. His first online meeting where 36 projects were passed all over the country. You see, the point is not to take names here. The point is to understand for the future and for the past and for the present that when these 36 projects were passed, they were actually a project which was called the Sabarmala project, which was actually a transportation of coal for the crony capitalists from India, who are some of the richest men on this planet, incidentally. And since a lot of India is run on coal, they are planning to make a double tracking railway line all across the length and breadth of India to transport coal, not for the increasing population and for traffic, etc. No, not for any of the people or humankind involved. No, it was to transport coal, giving the argument that coal is already 70% of the lifeline of India and things like this. Until when? So there is a conscious space that has already grown out of this understanding of energy resources, and has already started using other types of energy resources in small local communities, while the state government continues to hammer us with things like coal. So as you understand, the idea of institutionalized crime has not only been established beyond doubt, it has been spoken about by yours truly as a journalist since many years, and I will be putting out certain articles that I've been writing since the 90s with regards to these particular ideas. And one of the reasons that these things were not written again and again or brought up again and again was because these were already ideas which were set, which were fundamental ideas, like you can't kill a beach, you can't kill a forest, you cannot kill a hill, you cannot kill a paddy field. Even if you want to make some construction, you will have to go through some amount of understanding that this particular part of nature does not get constructed upon. And this is a guideline by the greatest law of the land, and it has been accepted upon. And if this has to be respected by the state government, then they have to take this charter very seriously, because this charter also says no development will take place near lakes, ponds, hills and rivers. The commission will be probing all the negative declaration cases of the last 5 years. There is another very important thing that has taken place with regards to understanding how the state government moves in this particular place called Goa. So what's happened here is the first time, you see, Goa has a certain few rivers passing through it, and then we have the Arabian Sea right there. The capital city of Panjim is built on the banks of a river. It's a very beautiful city with a beach on one end and with a jetty on the other side, and a bridge on one side, and a village with mangroves totally on another side of it. Okay, as the entire thing goes by and in the inland from the Arabian Sea. So this capital city is a very nice place where everybody comes. Of course, it's the capital, and people arrive there by default. And in this place where the river enters the capital city, there was always fishermen and fisher boats, and there were even steamer boats that were coming from Mumbai and docking there. Very nice. I've also been on one of these things, if I may just add little two bits of my own. Well, excuse me for this one, but finally getting down to understanding this place of the water coming inland and going towards mangroves and inland waters from the Arabian Sea. The city of Panjim had a lot of potential for more waterways, and now there are two things taking place. One is the crony capitalists, which are the coal barons of India, are trying to make a lot of jetties along these river edges for transportation of coal, however, which is a very sad fact, of course, because the direction we are going is the opposite one, when the world is trying to do as much as they cannot with coal and going on to other sustainable energies. So, as far as this is concerned, this is one side of the story. The other side of the story is there have been certain boats that have been docked by circumventing the law, let's say. And these boats are huge casinos which are now floating on this river called the Mandovi, which is the capital city of Panjim for the state of Goa. Now, there have reports of more than 11 casino boats there, which are huge casino boats with a lot of entertainment and lots of money being dealt with, let's say. Now, these, of course, provide a lot of revenue. So, the idea of the state government has always been revenue oriented. And this has lacked with regards to quality. So, when you're looking at revenue oriented tourists, you may have revenue, but you will have many people who will have only the money and not the ethic at all, not the manners at all. And they will expect to come in your place like they go to every other place and destroy whatever they can, because there will be a service team which will clean up after they go because they have paid for it. So the idea of understanding this from a state government point of view has not been successful, and hence we don't have a tourism policy in place, and hence we don't have a land use policy in place, and hence now this movement which is taking place which has been called to action by an ex-judge has these points very clearly mentioned, and one of these also says that these casinos which have been put there, which are doing a lot of damage to the waste and the flora and fauna and the sea underneath there, because it's a narrow opening into Goa, where the Arabian Sea comes in, and all of these boats have plonked themselves there at the beginning, just because they can be seen visibly nicely, and that will give them a lot of money. So while the entire generation of music tourism was put on a back seat and the focus has been money, the direction or the wrongness of this direction or the critique of this direction is very clear for everybody. And if we can go back to our simplicity of music tourism and promote the musicians in Goa themselves, because we have a very huge, rich music culture. This is something which we will need to look at probably in the next show, because I was going to play a couple of songs this time so we could even understand what it feels like. And the last point they're talking about is in this particular petition is in this charter, citizens charter rather, is the fact that all the people who have been taking part from the bureaucracy in giving such licenses, which have destroyed a lot of natural resources and gone against the law and have partied with the government and broken these laws, these people will need to be prosecuted. Now let's see how this goes, because we have a huge pressure on the judiciary of India, given our population and number of cases and the mindset that we have with regards to many things like female infanticide, and we have laws in India where you will not be revealed the sex of the child. And it's a very respectful law made because of a huge disastrous scenario which was taking place once the parents or the families knew what the sex of the child was. And hence there is a law in India where you are not going to be told the sex of the child. Of course, you can go to another country and get that revealed. But this is a point being made. And when we don't understand these points in a very respectful way, then the perspective of this is lost. And when the perspective of this is lost, you see, no amount of education can get this into into an ideology for someone. So without going into any more things, I would need to look at what I want to do on the show. No, actually, we need to just go back and recap to what we were trying to do earlier, which is a song we were trying to play earlier. It was a song by a very popular artist from Goa. And this gentleman is by far the most popular ever theatrist that lived this planet. He's been given the most highest prestigious award in Goa called the Padma Shri by the President of India himself way earlier. This was before we even came into the 2000s, and now we understand that this late gentleman who has left his legacy behind, who was the most popular superstar ever as far as Konkani theatre was concerned. He was a very popular star, and there was a couple of them actually, but this one was having an era of his own. And there were the others who came also who had their own eras and popularity for that amount of time. So switching from this idea of the state of Goa having this people's movement and going into a forward direction by a call to action by a ex-judge, the Citizens Charter is being made. The citizenry has spoken and joined for all of these meetings and pledged a lot of support. So getting a couple of 100,000 signatures, a couple of million signatures as well is not going to be an issue here at all. The government has not responded with any deadlines by which the changes will be made, having accepted that yes, we will do everything that the people tell us to do. So in effect, it has been accepted that institutionalized crime has happened in Goa by the state government and by the government of the powers that be, including the central government. And these have been violations with the Supreme Court directives, where the international citizenry is being affected, like is mentioned in the proceeds of the show. It was a lovely one just to share this aspect with you, because I'm not too sure how many years later you're going to be listening to this radio show, but this is what's going on right now. And this movement is something which is way more serious than the other ones, which is going to take place and probably go to a point where solution has already been endorsed. The solution already existed by the way of law. So this is just already going to be endorsed, and now there's loads of people support. So we have a direction which has been taken place in a very conscious manner, and we go ahead to the song. It's called Combo, and it's about the village sounds and the animals in the village and how they have their stories between themselves.
Esperanti comi adli moji, come disli poller gori loji, idli dandia narung dadli raji, edruja come an wat laili comieji.
Welcome to Goa Songs.
Como rota, kok kok kodre kok kok kok, como vai round budache gatta jok, munda kok 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 kodre kok kok kok, ye icon budan moje komi gaya ta jok. बोकडी पोचलेली एक पाव लंगडो ती पिनूच पायानी बुकड्या लागीन झोकडो तिच्या दुधान हांवें दुडू केल्लो रोकडो ती काय लाडूंक येता जुवांवचो बोकडो बोकडो रोटा मे कोता मे म्हणटा भायर येऊ बोकडेक दाखयता कितें बोकडी म्हणटा ने कोता ने म्हणटा हांव जाणा तुका झाडां दाखयतें घरान आमच्या बोवाळ म्हणून हुनरांचो माजोर पुतलें जीव काडून चकटांचो जायतो ती पावत नासलो कोणाचो ताकाय सोदायता बुकूल कोत्रिनाचो बुकूल रोटा मेव मेव सुता मेव